Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist. Today I'm going to be making a little tutorial on making a third-person camera. So let's get started right off the bat by sculpting a gun. It's not really going to be very detailed, but it will get the job done. We're going to raise our puppet's arm up here. Now, of course, you don't have to have this pose. You can have any pose you want. This is just what I chose to do. Scope in with, while holding the brick with R2, just press L1 and X to group it. And we're going to kind of thin this gun down a bit. That's a bit large. Copy out the shape. Yeah, that's basically a gun. Make it non-collidable, make the physics low, so it'll take up less thermo. And just group it. That should all be good. Now we're going to make some modifications to the arm. Set springiness on the bolts to maximum. Both the elbow, wrist, and shoulder bolts need to be set to maximum springiness. Now we're going to go inside the puppet, and we're going to turn off these things, which are basically what hooks it up to the procedural animations, I believe. Now you should be fine just turning off those. Turn off auto look. And turn off motion sensor movement, because we're not going to want that later. Delete these. Go into running parameters. And just get rid of all the poses that just press triangle on them if they're recorded. Get rid of all the poses that involve the arm, the torso, and the upper torso and the middle area. Get rid of those. Alright, now I think we're ready to start on our camera. I'm just going to stamp out a simple cube. Oh, by the way, apologies for the air conditioner. It's going to be running during these warmer periods. It may cause some interference, but it shouldn't be too big a deal. Unfortunately, we can't afford a really expensive recording studio. Always reduce the detail on these objects, I suppose. Unless, of course, your sculpt is supposed to be high detail. But this is basically going to act as our camera mount. Alright, you might want to extend this just a little bit. It's going to vaguely resemble a camera. Going to turn off collidability and visibility. And while you're at it, might as well turn off physics, make it ignore gravity, and turn down the density so that it has as little resistance as possible. And we built it already scoped in with the puppet, so that's good. Put on precise move. And we're going to start by putting a little... Oh, we already did that. Put the microchip on. Now you're going to want 3 things on this microchip, I think, for the time being. Camera, set the transition type to cut. Don't mess with anything else. We're going to pull the camera out just a little bit for now. We're going to be altering it later, though. And you're going to want a teleporter. A teleporter which I'm going to label to follow the tag labeled camera. Well, I'll just call it cam for short. Cam mount, which stands for camera mount. Set it to match target orientation. Another thing you might want to do is pull this up here. You want it to be dead center on the block as much as possible. Pull it in just a little bit with precise move. Alright, you also want Y to be up, Z to be forward, and X to be heading that way, so now that our orientation is properly programmed, the next thing we're going to want is a little microchip. Little microchip, we're going to label it Shoot. And this is what's going to emit our projectiles later. I'm going to go here real quick. Stamp out a node. Just open up your controller logic. Take the R2 output, stick it into this input of the node. And now we're going to take out an emitter. Stick that in there. Set it to emit once. Turn down the emit speed to 0. And we'll make the lifetime 5.0, I believe. Alright, that should be good. Now we're going to take out a timeline. Stick it right here. Set it to play once. And we'll set the playback speed to 200.00. Go in here. Go to Object Just Emitted. And connect it like so. Now all we have to do is put a little sound effect. I'm going to go to the sound effects real quick and get something that we can depend on. We can go to Combat, Guns and Blasters. We'll just go with Pulse Cannon. Set it to play once. Alright, that's good. And we can begin our first animation, which is going to be quite simple. Set it to linear blend. Just scope into this middle one, and all we're going to be doing is, when the gun fires, we want it to walk up just a little bit. That's how it's going to walk when you're firing it. And we're going to have a little tiny thing here, which is not always necessary, depending on how you build your shooting mechanics, but we're going to do it just in case. We're labeling this flash. And this is going to trigger the muzzle flash. It's just a little switch right here. And we might as well get down to making the muzzle flash, since it's going to be an issue later on anyway. And we're going to go as simplistic as possible, so just use Paint Flex set to Rule Flex. Stick it out like so. Like I said, this is the most basic, simplistic way of doing this. But it's only for display purposes, so that you know how to make this thing. You could make more elaborate muzzle flashes and all sorts of stuff, and there's other methods of controlling the muzzle flash, but I'm going for the most simple. There's a few advantages to this method, which I will explain in a moment. Set to fade out, that way it kind of, you know, looks like it's fading out. Alright. Now we're just going to scope in. Scope it one more time, stick it right here, which is where the muzzle would be. Now I'm going to explain why scoping in is better than having it emitted. You could have it emit from the barrel, which is one way of doing it. However, there is a disadvantage. Just hook the switch up to the power node. The disadvantage being that when you're moving, the muzzle flash won't always line up. It'll kind of like, you know, be off-center. That's not really something you want to do all the time, but now that we've solved that problem, we're going to be making a projectile. We're going to start by making a simple cube. Set it to stamp shape. You don't really have to have the cube be even, but it's just my preference. And then we're going to put out a little white spherical character, also set to stamp shape. You want this to mostly be centered, I suppose. Oh, and another thing you want to do is make this outside the puppet. You can just scope out. Once you're scoped out, just press this. Of course, we're going to want to group them again. Alright, go in here. Turn off collidability and invisibility for this cube. Also reduce the detail because it's not even going to be visible. Reduce the detail on this too because it just doesn't need to be detailed. And we're going to leave this visible, but we're going to turn off collidability. We're going to make it bright so that it kind of shows up when we fire. Alright. Now that they're grouped, just going to stamp out a little microchip on the back right here. Open it up. Alright, I think we're ready. Now that this chip is added, we're going to be putting a mover down here. It's going to be set to local space, dampening and strength all the way up to maximum. And the speed, I think, will be about 55.0. Next thing you want to do is take out a zone, a trigger zone, set it to label, make it shape square, make it so that it only detects enemies and scenery, and don't forget to label your puppet as a friend so that it won't collide with your puppet. Now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and label the floor as scenery. And we're going to copy it out so that when we start shooting, we'll have something to test, you know, how it's all working out. Now we're going to take out a little emitter, hook up the detected output to the power, set it to emit once, and set the lifetime to about, let's see, let's try 1. And we're going to scope in here real quick. We're going to reuse our muzzle flash. And if we go into here, which is, I don't know what they call this section, positional duplicates maybe? But basically we're just going to make like a little splash, like that. Stick a little microchip on there, make sure it's attached. And we're going to stick a little timeline on here, set it to play once, set the speed high, 200%. This first linear one you're going to want to have labeled as nothing. The middle one, just go in here real quick. Turn this up to maximum, and once you're done controlling the animation, turn it down to 0. Then copy it out once more, and instead turn this to maximum, and that should nicely fade out. Let's give it a little test. Alright, that's good. Seems to be working properly. Now the advantage to doing this is that we can put a sound effect on here. Put a little sound effect. Set the fade zone. That's about how far it's going to be when it hits the wall. And you can control the volume at your leisure. Alright. So now that that's done, we're just going to go ahead and emit that. Now at the speed that our little projectile is going to be flying, you're going to want to set this kind of in the back because the velocity is going to be pretty extreme. So set it in back. And if you're wondering why these things are so large, they're going to be much smaller in the final emitted version. Might actually just turn it down just a little bit. Oh, another thing you want to do with the mover. Gonna take this little arrow and set it forward so that it flies forward. Seems to be working pretty good. Alright. Now take out a destroyer, that way when it hits the wall, it will destroy and leave behind its little splash. Make it bigger. Alright. Now that that's done, let's see what we're going to be moving on to next. Oh yes, now I think we can begin work on the camera itself. And for ease of motion, I'm going to turn this around just a lot easier. Also, I'm going to label this camera so we don't get confused. Now just go in here to search and type in, I think it's first. Actually, wait a minute. It's first. Yes, there it is. First person character. This is an asset created by a media molecule, but it really is quite a time saver. It's possible to make everything they have created, of course. But if you go here to camera controls, it's best to just dupe this out, because it has everything we're going to need in it. Now, if you feel some kind of pride, like I want to make everything myself, feel free to. But I'm just going to be showing you, you know, the basics. And there's one reason why you might want to copy the MM version. These signal manipulators are manipulated by this, which remaps the threshold. That basically changes the controls, like if you want them to be reversed, and some people really prefer that. But these remap the thresholds easily, and I swear I've tried to recreate how they remap the thresholds, and I just can't seem to do it. So if you're into that, and you have as much trouble as me, you might want to have this as an option, so that you can invert the Y controls. But anyway, now that we've stamped this out, just take this little yawn turn, stick it on the puppet. And that's going to control your left to right rotation. And this, which is neatly labeled, by the way, you're just going to take the right stick local, connect it right up to that. So convenient. And the reticle's something we can work on later, but basically this is going to control the pitch of our camera. Now first, there's one other thing I should do before we start this up. Our camera is set to follow a tag, but we haven't stamped the tag out yet, so we're going to put a tag down here, and we're going to label it Cam Mount. Now that that's done, I'm going to pull it up here. About where the camera is sitting now. That should do it just fine. It should be in position. Alright. Now we can get to working on the pitch. This controls the pitch upward. So we're just going to pull the puppet's torso back a bit. And if you want to control the camera's pitch, just go scope into the tag and just pull this up a bit. I might just, yeah, pull that back even more. I find in these games it's usually useful to be able to shoot up pretty high, so we're gonna do that. It may look a little funky right now, but it'll look better in gameplay. Now we're gonna go to pitch down, do the same thing. There's a lot of games that include little creepy crawly enemies that run on the floor, so you're going to want this to be pretty low down, you know, facing the ground. You really don't want the player to feel like they can't deal with enemies that are short. It's very frustrating. And we're going to take out a little keyframe. Set it to linear blend, Just stick it right there, make it thin, and that should be that. Let's take a look and find out how this all plays out. Now, of course, we're going to have to adjust our camera because it's currently kind of far out, a little bit over the shoulder. We don't seem to be able to shoot. There must be a logical, simplistic explanation for this. Oh yes, we haven't even made our emitter emit the object yet. Now we're just going to pull the object over here. We're going to make it much smaller, of course. Although you could leave it big if you wanted to. Alright, now I think we should be able to do what we want to do. Now, of course, you see the problem that these shots are not remotely in line with the reticle. Also, they're flying pretty slow. As slow as Pandemic's Battlefront. We want them to go a lot faster than that. 55.0. I thought I already set that, but apparently shrinking it must have altered the speed. Anyway, now to correct the issue that we see, we're going to want to first open up the emitter so that we have access to it. Then we're going to go into play mode. And we're going to judge for ourselves. Clearly that's not on center with the reticle. Let's get a little further back too so we can judge it at long distance. Okay. Now that we have this open, it should be as simple as just turning this a little bit. And if you wanted, you could have it even more in line with the barrel. Just turn the angle just a little bit. Precise move helps with this a bit. You gotta be very precise. Sometimes it's an adjustable game. Alright, let's see how this works. Okay, I'd say that's roughly on center. Now a minor issue, which we are going to correct just for the sake of looking extra nice. So we're going to pull this out further and make it larger. Another thing you can do is the puppet, when it runs, kind of bobs around a bit, and if you want him to be more centered, which isn't entirely necessary, I'd say the effect looks pretty good even without centering this, but just basically click on this and you can test how he's going to waggle a bit. Turn sassiness down, turn limberness down. Here you could really turn down the sassiness in this way. Okay. Now he's a little bit less wobbly. Of course, he's still... Another thing we might do, turn the acceleration and deceleration down so that he has an easier time slowing. Turn his speed down to 5 so that he's not quite so fast. So yeah, you could make like some kind of Resident Evil style game using this technique. And that's pretty much all there is to it. That's a third-person camera. Now there is another issue with wall clipping that I would say can be fixed by simply having on the camera chip, just have these little laser scope things. There are limitations to this, of course. You're going to always end up with a little wall clipping, unfortunately, just because of the nature of Dreams. But what you can do is you can kind of zoom in just a little bit. And if you hook this up, See how it works. Oh dear. Alright. I think we might want to go all the way back. We made a little mistake and we forgot to scope out of our camera. Alright. Always remember to scope out of your camera, because it's not good to have that happening. Alright, so we're going to put this little thing out here and set it to detect scenery. And that can kind of prevent the clipping sometimes. You can also have a smoother transition in case you're worried about it being too abrupt. Just turn the slow power up and the slow power down on. It doesn't seem to be working at all in this case. I guess it's just too buried in the... maybe if we move it out here. But yeah, that can kind of prevent the clipping, sort of. Maybe not at all, actually. But there's different ways of handling the clipping issue. The main point is, this is how you do it. That's a third-person shooter. Hope you enjoyed. This creation will be remixable after this video comes out, so if you want to mess around or use it in any way you see fit, feel free to do so. Check the description for information on how to find it in Dreams. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to support us, check the links in the description to our art pal and our coffee. You can also follow me on Twitter if you like Dreams content and unique and entertaining takes. In the meantime, goodbye.